You're only good for mopping floors, Grace. You'd never understand this business world." The cruel phrase echoed in her mind as tears fell onto the marble hallway. The elevator opened, and Michael Anderson, the CEO, froze at the sight. Before the elevator doors opened that morning, life at Anderson & Co. Investments moved at a chilly, precise pace. The glass and steel building on Wall Street, just steps from Trinity Church and the intersection with Broad Street, reflected the grey sky above the endless stream of ties, heels, and cups of coffee. Wall clocks ticked time zone by time zone. No one smiled for no reason. Richard Miller woke up in his minimalist apartment on East 72nd Street, Upper East Side. Shining marble, full refrigerator, expensive silence. He adjusted his tie in the mirror with a thin smile, the kind that never reaches his eyes, and checked the expensive watch on his wrist. "Punctuality is power," he repeated to himself, before getting out to the car that dropped him off at 14 Wall Street. As he crossed the lobby, Richard was already handing out orders like fines. "Ben, the tech report is on my desk by 10 no. Lara, no large fonts. I want numbers, not literature. And someone bring me a decent coffee." Black hot. The mirrored elevator presented him with a perfect image. Slicked back hair, impeccable suit, cufflinks that screamed status. By the time the doors opened on the executive floor, he was already in attack mode. In the breakfast nook, his tone turned to sugary venom. "Good morning, team, or should I say good luck?" he blurted, instilling anxiety in everyone. Where he really shone, however, was with the invisibles. When he saw Grace pushing the cleaning cart down the marble hallway, his voice cracked like a whip. "Hurry up, Grace! You're only good for pushing that cleaning cart, not for dreaming." Her eyes lowered. His rose, triumphant. Richard thrived on this kind of cheap power, these small cruelties that no one important noticed, or at least pretended not to see. "Be careful with those glass doors," he quipped. "The reflection can confuse you, and too much dreaming makes people stumble." If any intern dared to argue, he'd cut them off. "Max, you're here to learn, not to be a hero. Heroes die young. Bring the spreadsheets." On the whiteboard in the meeting room, Richard drew arrows and percentages with sweeping gestures, as if he were a maestro of his own importance. He loved to hear his name echoed. Miller S. Plan, Miller S. Goal, Miller S. Model. And if something got out of hand, the target was simple, the weakest link. Michael Anderson, on the other hand, would wake up in Brooklyn Heights, near Willow Street, where mature trees shade the sidewalk and the view from the Brooklyn Heights promenade embraces the East River. A light jog at dawn, black coffee in a simple mug, and a quick check of emails before 7 a.m. A visionary with a reputation for fairness, Michael maintained a distance from the daily noise, not out of coldness, but out of focus. He was respected. He spoke little. He observed a lot. "Take me to Broadway and Wall Street," he'd tell the driver, closing his laptop. At the entrance to the building, he'd greet the security guard. "Good morning, Mr. Collins." "Good morning, Mr. Anderson," came the reply, still with discreet pride. On the CEO's floor, the team already knew, if they were going to talk to Michael, get straight to the point. No frills. He liked clean charts, tough questions, and honest answers. "Amanda, update me on Palo Alto," he'd ask, referring to the meetings on Sand Hill Road. 3 Pimpy, appointment, sir." "Great. What about the intern mentoring program?" "In progress. Keep it going." Even though he was distant, Michael picked up on details others overlooked. An overwhelmed colleague, a silence that didn't quite match victory, a look that pleaded for help. His office had floor-to-ceiling windows. Beyond the glass, ships sped across the Hudson. And in the reflection, he sometimes saw his own responsibility greater than the numbers. Grace Johnson would leave a small apartment in the Bronx, near the Grand Concourse, before sunrise. She'd leave a sandwich ready for her children, Maya and Jordan, and run downstairs with her battered backpack. She'd take the No. 4 subway to Walsant Station, always carrying a simple notebook in her bag, pages filled with bills, small goals, and silent prayers. In the Anderson & Co. building, she knew every inch of marble, every hidden coffee stain, every jammed door. Discreet headphones, low volume, sometimes a choir, sometimes calming music to calm the heart. "Excuse me, may I pass?" she said softly, dodging boxes, briefcases, and the rush. "Watch the carpet, Ms. Johnson," a kind intern warned. "Thank you, dear." And her smile was the only sunshine in some hallways. When she passed Richard, her body shrank reflexively. He noticed. He liked it. "You again, Grace." The arrow came cold. "Oh, this hallway won't clear itself." She breathed and continued, cloth, spray, patience. Her teary eyes weren't weakness, they were watered soil. There was something about her that the entire building couldn't see, a mind that counted, compared, organized. Her hands, as they cleaned, also added. The shine on the marble had method, the cart, order, the routine, discipline. Mid-morning, a secretary spilled coffee near room 27B. "I'm sorry, Grace. It's okay, honey. We'll figure it out." Richard walked past, theatrical. "Solve it quickly, please, and if possible, without drama." Grace bent down. The foam covered her coffee and, for a second, covered her pain too. She heard footsteps in the distance, the daily grind of Wall Street pulsing like an engine. She didn't want to draw attention. She wanted to get the job done, go home, check Maya's math homework, listen to Jordan talk about training. But the building whispered messages through the cracks, numbers on the screens, graphs on the walls, goals in emails, and sometimes a forgotten piece of paper said more than a scream. The difference between Richard and Michael was evident in the small gestures. Richard looked over people, Michael through them. One measured power through fear, the other through responsibility. And there, in the middle of these two worlds, Grace kept everything running, silent, steady, almost invisible. Almost. Because that day, as the building breathed its breath, something in the air would shift, and the glances that had always passed over her would finally stop. The coffee foam she'd just cleaned in room 27B still glistened on the cloth when Grace noticed, on the glass table, a sheaf of paper bearing the company's letterhead, Anderson & Co., board brief, Q3 preliminary. Beside it, an open laptop displayed the green columns of a spreadsheet. The door was ajar, the air conditioning blew cold, and the city beyond the windows seemed distant, like a muted TV. "Just a second," he murmured, straightening the sheet so they wouldn't get wet. His eyes, by ancient reflex, fell on the numbers. The first line read revenue, 184.3. Below that, COGS, 137.2, SG&A, 28.5. Other income, 4.1, net, 32.7. Grace stopped. She did the math in her head, in the old rhythm she'd taught her students in Atlanta. 184.3, 137.2, 28.5 plus 4.1. The answer appeared in her mind, clear as a click. 22.7. "It doesn't add up," she whispered, frowning. He turned the page. Another spreadsheet, this time with fine lines, non-recurring adjustments, 10.0. The pen beside it had fresh ink. There were arrows drawn on it, notes scribbled, move to other income, consolidate, reclass without noise. She took her worn notebook from her pocket, blue cover, slightly faded, and wrote down the numbers that jumped from the page into her head. 22.7, 10.0, 32.7. She tried to organize her thoughts. The hallway light flickered slightly. That was when a voice cut through the air, harsh as a blade. "Don't touch that! You can barely read!" The Richard Miller appeared in the doorway, filling the space with his dark suit and a thin smile. In 2 strides, he snatched the sheaf of papers from Grace's hands. She took a step back, her heart pounding in her throat. "Sir, I was just cleaning. The coffee might stain." "Cleaning," He laughed humorlessly. And you decided to play executive. You think you understand anything about these columns? I saw the numbers don't add up. The sum... Enough. His tone lowered, more dangerous. You're not here to add anything up, Grace. You're here to push this cart. He stacked the sheets, trying to appear casual, but his fingers were in a hurry. The laptop still displayed the spreadsheet open. For a moment, before he slammed the lid shut, she saw a tab titled Add G, Q3RM, XLSX, and by a quick reflex, another label in the footer, Consulting, RM Advisors. The cursor blinked over a cell with a long formula. Richard, I just said that... Her voice trailed off and came back firm. This line here, other income. Someone added a non-recurring amount. That changes the bottom line. A lot. Someone? He tilted his head theatrically. Who? You, the Wall Street cleaning lady. From the hallway, two curious heads, an intern and an analyst, emerged, gazing at the atmosphere. Richard straightened his tie and raised his voice, turning the room into a stage. Guys, look. Grace is now CFO. She's going to teach us how to calculate. Maybe I should hand over my position to her, huh? A blush rose to Grace's face, but it wasn't shame, it was fire. I don't want your position, sir. I just didn't want anyone to be unfair to me. I saw that it doesn't add up. 184.3, 137.2, 28.5 plus 4.1 doesn't equal 32.7. It equals 22.7. There's an extra 10 here. And this note, she pointed to the footer, it says non-recurring. Silence. The intern bit his lip. The analyst looked away. Richard leaned in close until his coffee breath touched her face. Listen carefully. Miss Johnson, numbers don't magically match or dismatch. They follow context, method, governance, big words. You know, things that are not in your world. Math is my world, she said, almost whispering, but firmly. What? Math. It's my world. He laughed dryly. Here's some simple math. A warning now saves you 0 problems later. Stay away from those papers and this room. Grace, however, noticed something he'd forgotten to remove. A yellow post-it note stuck to the second page with hurried writing, "Move to other income. Close gap." Richard's finger was quicker, but she'd already read it. His gaze caught it. "You didn't see anything," he said softly, each word like a nail. "I saw that it doesn't close." He leaned in even further, shadow upon shadow. "You know what's going to happen? Your contract? If you make up a story, spread gossip, or repeat that old trick about talking about numbers, you are not going to set foot in here again, and no one will hire you after that. She who meddles where she shouldn't, that's how doors close." Grace gripped the cloth tightly, her knuckles turning white. A memory jolted, a chalkboard. Chalk, a classroom in Atlanta. Breathe, check, recalculate. "I didn't make anything up. I just read." "You can barely read, remember?" He snapped his fingers, summoning the analyst. "Lara, bring these documents to my desk, and close the room now." Lara hesitated, looking from Grace to Richard. "Okay, sir." She took the sheets, but with careful hands, as if holding glass evidence. Richard pointed to the cleaning cart, his voice loud again, for the hallway to hear. "Grace, the next time I see you near any report, you're out. No warning, no talking, understood?" She swallowed hard. "Understood, sir." When he turned, Grace took a step toward the table. "Just one more thing." "No." His word was an iron gate. "It is closed." He left, taking the air from the room with him. The intern, pale, whispered, I saw you doing the math. It seemed right." Grace tucked the notebook into her apron pocket, her heart beating fast and steady like a metronome. The coffee foam had already disappeared from the floor, but in her head the numbers remained. 22.7, 10.0, 32.7, glowing like neon signs in the dark. In the glass, Her reflection revealed a tense face, her eyes wet but steady. Someone coughed in the hallway. A phone rang in the distance. The building returned to its normal noise, but nothing was normal. Grace knew she had touched a live wire, and that from that moment on, everything could change. Breathe, she said to herself softly. Check. Recalculate. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. But Richard would not be satisfied. The kitchen on the floor looked like a white aquarium, fluorescent light, the smell of burnt coffee, the microwave beeping, the TV on mute, playing the CNBC ticker. Richard entered first, pushing the door open with his shoulder. Then he called people in with a curt gesture, as if summoning an audience. "Guys, come here for a second." His voice cut through the conversation of those heating up lasagna. "Grace thinks she understands Wall Street spreadsheets. Maybe she wants to take my job." Some laughed nervously, others laughed heartily. Paper cups trembled in their hands. Grace, standing with her cart near the steel counter, felt the floor getting smaller. "Seriously, Lara," she pointed at the analyst. "She said my numbers don't add up." She made air quotes with her fingers theatrically. "They don't add up. Look how cute." Lara held her gaze to the glass. I didn't hear her say that, sir." "But you thought, didn't you?" Richard smiled sharply. "Let's do this. Applied mathematics class." He took a napkin, the pen from his badge pouch, and scribbled columns. Here, revenue, here, COGS, here, SG&A, here, other income. He tapped the pen on the table. "Grace, tell me the result." She breathed. Her hands gripped the cart's handles. The noise of the coffee grinder sounded like thunder. I'm not here for that, sir. I just said that. Short story, short answer." The smile didn't reach his eyes. "Show everyone how it's done. Maybe I'll promote you to VP of Squeegee and Bucket." Laughter. A spoon hit the glass. The sound spread like a pebble in a pond. Intern Max shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, perhaps we could get back to the tables. We have the Palo Alto call at 3. "Max, heroes die young. Sit down." Richard drew an arrow on the napkin. "Come on, Grace. If it's that simple, prove it, or apologize for your nonsense." Her eyes burned. It wasn't fear. It was humiliation setting in, cold. The numbers shone in her head, neatly arranged like books on a shelf. She swallowed hard. "I didn't say anything. Nonsense." The voice was low but firm. "I just saw a wrong sum." "Wrong?" He feigned surprise. "Guys, listen. She wants to teach us about governance." He chuckled to himself. "Grace, numbers don't live on a planet without gravity. They have context. They have adjustment. They have classification. Word of the day, non-recurring." "Say it with me." She fell silent. The TV behind her showed market alert. The ticker ticked. Hearts beat too. "I just wanted respect." She looked up. "That's all." Richard took a half step closer. "We earn respect by keeping quiet and working properly, not by snooping around in other people's desks and making up stories." He turned to the group. "And what's more, has anyone here ever seen a cleaning lady become a counselor? Anyone? No? Well, that's it. You don't have to say it like that, sir," Lara ventured tentatively. "Yes, you do." His tone grew harsher. "Because some people confuse cleaning with ordering." Grace squeezed the cloth inside the bucket until her fingers ached. She remembered Maya asking about fractions, Jordan doing math in his notebook with squiggly lines. She remembered the blackboard, the chalk, the smell of the room, and how numbers, when right, stay. She began. "Enough." Richard raised his hand, cutting him off. "Let's cut this short because my patience, unlike certain sums, doesn't stretch. You're going to apologize for disrespecting my desk, my work, and my time. You're going to say, loud and clear, 'I messed up,' and we'll move on with our day. Deal." The silence grew heavy. The grinder stopped. The clock hand, high above, seemed louder. "I'm not going to say I was wrong," Grace replied, her voice turning to steel in the end. Because I wasn't wrong. A soft, "Ooh," ran through the pantry. Max stared at the floor. Someone cleared their throat. Richard gave a small, crooked smile. "Okay, then let's play show." He turned the napkin over for everyone to see. Revenue, 184.3. COGS, 137.2. SG&A, 28.5. Other income, 4.1. He looked at the audience. Who here thinks it's 32.7? A few hands went up hesitantly. See, not everyone's stupid. 22.7, Grace said, without lifting her chin. What? 22.7. Now she looked him in the eye. No non-recurring adjustment. Richard's laughter grew louder, forced. And where did you learn that swear word, huh? YouTube? TikTok? He turned to the others. Tomorrow she's opening a channel, Cleaning and Finance. Subscribe? The laughter returned. Worse. Embarrassment painted the walls. Injustice became a rusty taste in the mouths of those who had a heart. I won't say it again, she said, gathering her courage with both hands. I just wish you'd stop treating me like dirt. I work here. Richard's jaw locked for a second. Then came the icy, you work here as long as I allow you to. And I don't allow you to touch anything with a number on it, understand? Not even if you look at it. She was just trying to help. Max spoke softly. Max, final warning. Richard's finger traced the air. Work. Now. He picked up the napkin, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash as if it were a victory. Before leaving, he leaned close to Grace, his voice just for her. You messed with something you shouldn't have. And here, when we mess with something we shouldn't, the door slams shut. Got it. Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't fall. They remained trapped, proud, firm. I understand. Richard opened the door and, in a loud voice, so the entire pantry could hear, show over, back to the tables, and please, no makeshift counters in the hallway. The door closed. The normal noise returned, lots of keyboarding, little courage. Lara approached with a clean napkin, unsure of what to say. Grace, It's okay, she breathed, righting the stroller. It's not, but it will be. Max took a step back, embarrassed. Sorry, I should have spoken louder. You've said enough. She smiled slightly, her eyes still moist. Thank you. Grace pushed the cart out of the pantry. The marble hallway greeted her with the same brightness as always, but something had changed. The echo of laughter faded, stuck in the tile. Something else was growing in her chest. Courage. The tension didn't diminish. It grew, as if the entire building were holding its breath before a thunderclap. The marble hallway still carried the echo of humiliation. Grace was pushing the cart slowly, trying to hide her red eyes, when the pantry door banged open. Richard came out laughing loudly as if he'd just won a prize. See, he said to two analysts who were following him, looking uncomfortable. The cleaning lady wants to teach finance. Tomorrow she'll take my job. The awkward giggles were cut off by a deep voice behind them. What's going on here? Silence fell like shattered glass. The elevator had just opened, and Michael Anderson stood in the doorway. The CEO carried a leather briefcase in his left hand and stared at Richard as if through the smoke of a fire. Richard cleared his throat, straightening his tie. Nothing much, Mr. Anderson. Just a silly mix-up. He turned theatrically to Grace. Isn't that right, Grace? She felt the weight of all the stairs. Her heart seemed to pound in her stomach. She gripped the cleaning cloth tightly, but her voice escaped before her fear. No, sir, you weren't stupid. Michael frowned. Explain. Richard laughed, loud and forced. Sir, this maid thinks she understands numbers. She was going through documents that aren't hers and wanted to tell me I added things up wrong. He spread his arms, mocking. Imagine, Mr. Anderson, a cleaning lady correcting the operations manager. The hallway filled with subdued murmurs. Some of the staff held their breath. Grace slowly raised her eyes. They trembled, but remained steady. Mr. Anderson, I know how to analyze that balance sheet. I can prove it. The sentence hung in the air like a blade. Richard swallowed hard, trying to hide it with another laugh. Are you listening? Pure audacity. Waste of time. Michael didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked from Richard to Grace, then to the cleaning cart, and back to her. His gaze was serious, inquisitive, unhurried. Grace, is it? He asked. Yes, sir. Her voice almost cracked, but held. You say you can prove it. She took a deep breath. Yes, I can. The numbers don't add up. Someone added 10 million as if it were recurring revenue, but it isn't. It says it's a non-recurring adjustment. That changes the bottom line. A louder murmur ran down the hallway. Lara, the analyst who had witnessed the scene, pressed her lips together in silent confirmation. Richard interrupted. Sir, she's distorting it. She doesn't understand the context. It's just a coincidence. The woman barely graduated from high school. Grace looked up, interrupting firmly. I was a math teacher. The revelation came like a snap. Before I came here, before I lost my husband and had to support my children, I know what I'm talking about. Richard paled for a moment, but then he started laughing again. Math teacher or not, this is Wall Street, not a suburban classroom. Michael held up his hand, silencing him. Enough. The entire hallway held its breath. The CEO looked at Grace again. I want you to show me. Now. Her eyes shone with a mixture of nerves and courage. She pulled the faded blue notebook from her pocket, where she'd already jotted down her calculations. The pages were filled with numbers scribbled in pen. She opened it quickly, showing it to the CEO. Here, sir. He pointed with a firm finger. 184.3, 137.2, 28.5, plus 4.1, 22.7. Not 32.7 as it says in the report. What's left is exactly the difference of $10, which is written as a non-recurring adjustment. Michael leaned forward to look. The hallways grew so quiet he could hear the elevator close. Mr. Anderson, this is just a waste of time, Richard insisted nervously. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Grace closed the notebook, staring at the two of them. Yes, I know, and I can prove it. Michael stared at her for several long seconds. Then he turned to Richard, who was now sweating beneath his impeccable suit. Mr. Miller, he said slowly, if she's right, she'll have a lot of explaining to do. Richard's face paled completely. Grace, on the other hand, felt the weight of shame transform into something else. Strength. The entire hallway now looked at her, not as invisible, but as someone who dared to speak. The hallway was still buzzing with tension when Michael made a curt gesture with his hand. Mrs. Johnson, come with me. The glass doors of the conference room opened like a floodlit stage. A long oak table, a projector on the ceiling, windows revealing Manhattan beyond. Richard hung back, biting his lip, as Grace pushed the cart to the door and left it in the hallway. She entered slowly, adjusting her apron as if each step were too heavy. Michael placed the folder on the table and slid a report toward her. Show me what you saw. Grace took a deep breath. She picked up the sheet, smoothed it as if touching a precious book, and asked, May I use a pen, sir? He handed over his own Mont Blanc. The pen felt disproportionately heavy in her hands, but her fingers steadied. On the whiteboard beside her, she began writing the columns: revenue 184.3, COGS 137.2, SG&A 28.5, other income 4.1. Then he did the calculation in front of him. That's 22.7, sir, not 32.7. The final number was manipulated with an adjustment that's listed as non-recurring. That is, something that shouldn't be added to regular revenue. Michael watched her silently, his brow furrowed. Her handwriting was clear, like a schoolteacher's, each number clearly separated. He approached, resting his hands on the table. Where did you learn to do this analysis? Grace paused. The question opened a window in her chest that had long been closed. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't look away. I was a math teacher in Atlanta. Her voice was low but firm. I had a high school class. I loved teaching. The students called me Miss Johnson, and I believed I would spend my life in that chalk-smelling classroom. She took a deep breath, memories tightening her chest. But my husband got sick, liver cancer. We fought for 2 years. I sold my car, my furniture, even my wedding rings to pay for his medicine. When he died, I was left alone with 2 young children, Maya and Jordan. Michael remained motionless, but his dark eyes revealed that he was listening intently. Grace swallowed, her hand tightening on her pen. I tried to keep going, but the bills came like waves. School didn't pay like Wall Street, and I couldn't hold the house together anymore. I got laid off. So I took what came my way, housekeeping, cleaning, anything that put food on the table. Her voice trembled, but she didn't let it break. When I came in here, I thought, at least it's stable. But I became invisible. No one calls me Ms. Johnson, just the cleaning lady. Wall clock could be heard ticking. But numbers, she continued, staring at the whiteboard. They've never left me. I do math in my head on the subway. I teach my kids fractions at dinner. I write exercises in a blue notebook I carry in my pocket. I've never stopped being a teacher, sir. It's just that no one sees it. The tears flowed now, but with them came determination. Today, when I saw that report, I couldn't keep quiet. It was instinct. I knew it was wrong. And if I didn't speak up, I would be an accomplice. Michael slowly pulled out his chair, sat down, and rested his chin on his hand. His eyes were different. No longer those of a distant executive, but of a man facing a revelation. Grace, he said softly, you saved the company from a serious lie. She took a deep breath, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I just did what I thought was right. Michael leaned back, crossing his arms. No, you did so much more. You did what none of us realized. Her eyes shone with a mixture of pain and pride. For the first time in years, someone saw who she was, not just what she did. The silence lasted a few more seconds. Outside, the building continued its rhythm of keyboards and phone calls. Inside, however, something had changed. It wasn't just a corrected spreadsheet. It was an entire life revealed. Michael set his pen down on the table, took a deep breath, and gestured to the glass door. Amanda, get Mr. Miller in here. Seconds later, Richard walked in, trying to look calm. Michael stood up. The city behind the glass seemed to hold its breath. You humiliated her out of pure prejudice. The sentence came out clean, direct, without shouting. And you even tried to silence someone who was right. Richard gave a defensive smile. Sir, it was a misunderstanding, a cup game. You know how it is, people. Joking is the name we give to cowardice when we're around weak people. Michael didn't take his eyes off him. Not here. Richard lowered his chin an inch. If you offended anyone, I can apologize. Michael inclined his head. Ask now. Richard turned to Grace, unable to meet her gaze. Sorry, Grace, I overdid it. She didn't respond immediately. Her fingers, still stained with cleaning product, clutched the blue notebook. A thank you almost came out, but it stuck. Michael noticed. The apology is the beginning, not the end, the CEO said, turning to face Richard. From today on, respect is a minimum. Any slight with her or anyone on the team, and you're out. Understood. Understood, sir, Richard murmured. Michael then turned to Grace. His tone changed. Grace, starting today, I want you working directly with me. I need someone with your vision. Time stopped for a second. She blinked, confused. With me, sir. Yes, CEO's office, special projects. Michael pulled out a chair for her. We'll start with report review and basic analysis routines. You'll have training, a laptop, and access to the necessary data. And we'll adjust your schedule so you can take care of Maya and Jordan. No talent flourishes under fear. Grace put her hand to her chest, as if confirming that her heart was still there. Sir, I still have a cleaning shift. Today, you finish however you like, Michael said softly. Tomorrow, you report to Amanda at 9 a.m. New contract. He glanced at his assistant through the door. Get everything done. Amanda nodded, already taking notes. Lara and Max, outside, exchanged discreet smiles. Richard tried to regain ground. "Mr. Anderson, this may sound hasty. It's not like that." "Enough, Miller," Michael said firmly. "You had the chance to recognize talent and failed. I won't fail again." He turned to Grace, his voice lower. "I was too far from the company floor. I didn't see you. I'm sorry." The words were heavy, sincere. "Thank you for not giving up on the truth." Her eyes watered again, but there was light. "I just want to work properly, sir, and be treated like a person." "It's the bare minimum," Michael replied, "and from now on, it's the rule." He held out his hand. Grace hesitated for a moment, then shook it. Her palm still smelled of citrus from the cleaning product, his of leather and coffee, two worlds that, at last, touched equally. "Welcome to the team, Ms. Johnson." From the hallway, a collective sigh could be heard. Relief, surprise, a little hope. Richard stood still, his suit mask beginning to crack. "Amanda," Michael concluded, "schedule a quick onboarding session with Lara and Max, and please forward a formal review of this quarter's reports." "Yes, sir." Grace tucked away the blue notebook like someone guarding a silent trophy. For the first time since entering that building, her name rang true in a meeting room. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson." "Let's go, Grace. Lots of work ahead," he said with a brief smile. And this time, the right way. 2 days later, at 7:42 a.m., an email with a red subject line popped into Amanda S. inbox. "Urgent. Redwood Capital and North Bridge. Serious doubts in Q3. Risk of withdrawal. Call today, 3 p.m. PT." Within minutes, the executive floor became a fast-paced corridor. In the glass room, maps of Silicon Valley were spread out, spreadsheets projected on the wall, voices racing over numbers. The city outside remained grey. Inside, the air smelled of strong coffee and fear. Michael asked, his laptop cover open. "Hundreds of millions, sir," Amanda replied dryly. "Term sheet hanging. If they pull out, we'll end the expansion for good." And what did they see? Inflated other income, non-recurring adjustments, and, she hesitated, a vendor line called RM Advisors. Michael narrowed his eyes. RM, Richard Miller. Advisors. Amanda nodded tensely. The door opened. Richard entered with the haste of someone intent on commanding chaos. "I already spoke with Gabe, Redwood's partner. It's technical noise. I'll explain it on the call, and that's it. We don't need to involve..." He looked around, searching for an easy target. People outside the operation. Michael didn't answer. He glanced over his shoulder, through the glass hallway. Grace stood there, blue notebook in hand, waiting, unsure if she could enter. "Grace, come in!" Michael's voice was clear. Richard spun around. "What?" Grace walked in slowly, her heart racing. "I was called?" "Yes," Michael said. "Let's get the narrative straightened out for Redwood. You'll go over it line by line with me." Richard gave a short, nervous laugh. "She's just a cleaning lady. This isn't charity time, this is real money time." Michael looked up, cutting the air with the calm of a decision-maker. "She's an essential part of the team now." Period. Silence. The full stop stamped the floor. "Mr. Anderson." Richard spread his hands. "Compliance, access, confidentiality. She has no clearance. If Redwood realizes..." "Redwood noticed things we didn't," Michael interrupted coldly. "And she saw it first. Her clearance is mine." "Is that clear?" Richard clenched his jaw. "Of course, sir." Michael turned the notebook toward Grace. "They asked for a reconciliation of other income, identification of non-recurring items, and justification for the RM Advisors item." "I can start now," Grace said, pulling out the notebook. "If you give me 10 minutes, I can put together a simple step-by-step guide to present." "Do it in 5, Michael replied, not harshly but urgently. Amanda, turn on the war room, Lara. Prepare the clean template. Max, open a doc and transcribe everything Grace dictates. No loose commas. Richard tried to regain control. I've always led these calls. Gabe trusts me. If we put in a rookie, we'll look weak. Weakness, Michael said slowly, is hiding who you know because it bothers the one in charge. Not here. Grace took a deep breath and walked over to the whiteboard. She wrote in teacher's handwriting. 1. Base revenue. Q3. 2. Non-recurring adjustments. List. 3. Correct classification. Reconciliation to net. 22.7. 4. RM advisors. Scope. Contract. Justification. RM advisors. Contract, sir, Lara said, glancing at Richard. I have it with me, he replied dryly. I can send you an abridged version. No, Michael cut in. The full version. Today, Grace aligned the columns. The logic is simple. Explain why before explaining how much. Redwood understands numbers. What they want is trust. We show transparency, clean up the classification, and detail each adjustment, without pushing non-recurring where it doesn't belong. If they insist, we'll go back to the rough draft and redo it with them watching. Michael nodded in approval. That's it. Outside, the light grew whiter. 3 p.m. PT meant 7 p. In Manhattan, there was little time and a lot to lose. Richard stepped into the center of the room. Okay, we'll take her on the call. But I'll make the trip to Palo Alto. I already have a relationship on Sand Hill Road. Michael closed his laptop, deciding we're both going, and Grace too, in-person meeting in Menlo Park. Tomorrow. Tomorrow? Richard swallowed. Tomorrow. Amanda, issue 3 tickets. JFK, SFO, 7 hours a.m. Reserve a room on Sand Hill Road for 2 p.m. and let me know. We'll bring the open-top model. Richard tried again. Sir, this will sound desperate. It will sound brave, Michael said. And transparency, 2 things that cost nothing and save contracts. Grace flipped through her notebook, marking tabs with yellow post-its. Fear still lingered in her hands, but now it shared the space with a new fire. I'll go, she said simply. I just need to stop by and get the kids' dinner ready. I'll drive you back to the Bronx today, Amanda offered, and pick you up at 5:30. Grace smiled gratefully. Thank you. Michael walked to the glass door and looked down the hallway. Team, attention. Top priority. Anything not Redwood. Pause. And, Mr. Miller, he turned to Richard. Check the full RM advisor's dossier now. I want it printed on my plane. Yes, sir, Richard replied, his voice too low for its earlier arrogance. The room began to empty amidst the clicking of keyboards and shallow breaths. The reception TV showed the Golden Gate Bridge at sunset, some news report. California seemed distant, yet only a stone's throw away. Michael approached Grace once more. I trust you. I'll be ready, she said, holding the notebook like a shield. The elevator doors opened. The trio's reflection appeared side by side. The CEO, the manager trembling inside, and the woman with the blue notebook. 3 destinies bound by the same contract. Let's save this, Michael said. Grace nodded. Richard swallowed. The doors closed with a sigh. Tomorrow, California, and with it, the acid test. The California sun was shining brightly as the black car pulled up in front of the imposing, mirrored building on Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto. This was no ordinary address. It was the heart of Silicon Valley, where the world's largest technology and finance empires were born and grew. To Grace, each step on that marble floor felt heavy as lead. Her makeshift badge hung crookedly around her neck, and she clutched the blue notebook to her chest like a shield. Michael walked steadily beside her, every movement calculated. Richard followed close behind, his forehead glistening with sweat even in the freezing air conditioning of the hall. On the meeting floor, the doors opened to reveal a large, minimalist room with huge glass windows revealing the trees of Palo Alto and, in the background, the metallic glow of the Bay Area. 4 investors were waiting for them around a light oak table. Gabe Turner, partner at Redwood Capital, a man in his early 40s, with a calculating look, a controlled voice. Sophia Lee, a young audit specialist, with the coolness of someone who didn't let anything go unnoticed. Alan Brooks, Northbridge veteran, silver hair, serious expression and eagle eyes. Nadia Khan, silent, but with sharp eyes that seemed to penetrate walls. On the table were stacks of reports and laptops already turned on, with colourful graphs ready for attack. The atmosphere was that of a courtroom. "Mr. Anderson," Gabe said, rising just long enough to shake Michael's hand, "thank you for coming. But you know why we requested this meeting. There are serious inconsistencies in Q3. Michael nodded calmly. "Yes, I do. That's why we came." Then he turned to the side. "And I brought someone with me who will answer your questions with absolute clarity." The investor's eyes fell on Grace. She flinched a little, but didn't look away. The blue notebook in her hands was damp from holding it so tightly. Sophia arched her eyebrow. "Straightforward. Who is she?" Before Richard could open his mouth, Michael replied firmly, "Grace Johnson. She's worked at Anderson & Co. for years and was the first to spot the errors you noticed." Richard stepped forward, his nervous voice masked with irony. "With all due respect, Mr. Anderson, but she's not part of the executive team. She's a support staff member. We can't put a contract this size in the hands of—" Michael cut in sharply. "The risk is not listening to her." Silence fell heavily. Nadia leaned forward, interested. Sophia slid the iPad across the table and turned the screen toward them. "Now let's get straight to the point. Here's the other income line. It says 32.7. By our sum, it should be 22.7. How do you explain this difference?" Everyone looked at Michael. He simply turned to Grace, as if passing the baton. "Show them." Her heart seemed to hammer in her chest, but when she opened her blue notebook and took a deep breath, the fear began to turn into focus. Grace stood slowly, walked to the whiteboard and began writing in a clear teacher's hand. 184.3, revenue, 137.2, COGS, 28.5, SG&A, plus 4.1, other income, Marsh's 22.7. Then he turned to the investors. His voice was firm. "The real value is 22.7. But the report you receive shows 32.7. The difference is 10 million added as if it were recurring revenue. However, it's a non-recurring item, a one-time event. This cannot be included as part of the company's sustainable profit." Sophia crossed her arms. "Go on." Grace opened a folder, pulled out the RM Advisors contract and showed the still attached post-it note. "Move to other income. Close gap. Here's the source of the amount. It was posted as a consulting firm, but it won't be recurring in the coming quarters. Reporting it as recurring revenue is misleading. If Redwood and Northbridge identified the problem, it means the report was manipulated." Richard coughed nervously. "That's a matter of interpretation. CFOs around the world know that adjustments—" Grace interrupted him, without trembling. "It's not interpretation, it's mathematics. The number doesn't add up. The sum is wrong. And worse, someone wanted it to look right." The silence in the room was so intense that you could hear the wind outside. Nadia, who had been silent until then, spoke in a firm voice. "I agree with her." Alan leaned his elbows on the table and gave a rare smile. "That woman is brilliant. How did you hide her for so long?" Michael leaned back in his chair, satisfied. "Because no one was paying attention where they should have. But that ended today." Sophia typed quickly on her iPad. When she looked up, her expression was different. Skepticism gone, but respect. "Mr. Anderson, if Anderson & Co. truly adopts this stance of transparency from now on, we'll have no reason to terminate the contract." Gabe nodded. "I agree. We want partners who tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable." Michael took a deep breath, looking at Grace. "Then you have my word, and you have the proof, right in front of you." The investors exchanged glances. The tense atmosphere in the room began to dissipate. The deal was saved, not by a rehearsed presentation, not by an arrogant manager, but by the courage of a woman everyone thought invisible. Grace closed the blue notebook slowly, her hands trembling, not with fear, but with pride. Her eyes welled up as she thought of Maya and Jordan. If only they could see me now. The afternoon glow streamed through the windows, illuminating the whiteboard with the numbers she'd written on it. Numbers that, in that room, were worth millions. But to Grace, they meant so much more. Dignity. She was no longer just the woman who cleaned hallways. She was the woman who had saved a financial empire from collapse. The plane touched down at JFK as dusk fell. When the trio entered the Anderson & Co. building on Wall Street, the floor was already bustling. On the large screen in the lobby, a DocuSign window displayed Redwood Capital and North Bridge, executed. A breath of relief swept through the hallway like a warm wind after rain. Michael walked straight to room 1, the largest with its smoked glass, all hands meeting. Now, Amanda sent out the announcement on Slack. Within minutes, analysts, interns, legal staff and IT staff all filled the chairs. Grace stood near the door, her blue notebook clutched to her chest. As always, Richard Hayes, stiff, forced a smile that didn't convince anyone. Michael rested his hands on the table and looked at the team. We have 2 pieces of news. Pause. First, the contract has been closed. The room erupted in applause, whistles, and restrained hugs. Grace clapped her hand over her mouth in surprise, while Amanda discreetly raised her fist in the air. The second news, Michael continued, and the room fell silent, is about how we got here. He looked at Grace. We shut down because someone told the truth when it was easier to keep quiet. Everyone's eyes followed his to the woman in the doorway. Grace lowered her chin slightly, embarrassed and proud at the same time. Michael straightened. Before I name names, I need to be clear. His voice was as clear as steel. There's no room here for arrogance and prejudice, nor for manipulating numbers, nor for people who humiliate those who earn less. Richard cleared his throat. Mr. Anderson, if you'll excuse me, I think it's unfair to turn a misunderstanding about the World Cup into... It's not a misunderstanding. Michael held up a folder, Extraordinary Internal Audit, RM Advisors, non-recurring entries in Other Income to close the gap. He let the sentence fall heavily. Mr. Miller, you approved, justified, and pressured people to keep this hidden. He turned his head slightly and humiliated anyone who dared point out the error. A murmur of shock rippled through the room. Lara bit her lip. Max lowered his eyes, but with the beginnings of a smile, seeing justice coming. Richard tried his last card. I did it for the good of the company. It was a presentation strategy. The numbers would settle in Q4. Enough. Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Strategy isn't about lying, and leadership isn't about stepping on people who are down. He took a firm breath. Richard Miller, you are fired for cause. Legal will follow up. Security, please. Time stopped for a second, as if the room held its breath. 2 discreet security guards, Collins in the lead, approached. Richard went white, his mask cracking completely. You can't, Michael, The words broke in the air. Michael just pointed to the door. Richard left amid looks that weren't of hate. They were of weariness from years of petty venom. Silence. Then Michael turned to the team, and the mood changed. Now the right part. He smiled slightly. Grace Johnson, come here. She hesitated 2 steps, like someone arriving at a church with open doors after a long time outside. She climbed to the front. Her hands trembled, but her feet were steady. It was her, Michael said bluntly. The first to see what the giants didn't, the first to say no closing. He looked around. Redwood and Northbridge stayed because they believed in our transparency, and that transparency has a name. Grace tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't come out. A lump tightened in her throat. Talk to us, Grace, Amanda asked, a sparkle in her eyes. She took a breath, looking at each face. I just did the math, and I asked for respect. She smiled shyly. Thank you for listening. The room erupted. Standing ovations, whistles. Bravo! That's it. Max, blushing, clapped until it hurt. Lara discreetly wiped away a tear. The sound bounced off the glass and bounced back in waves, like the sea. And there's more, Michael said, raising his hand for the room to hear. Starting today, Grace will be a special projects analyst in the CEO's office. Immediate training, mentoring with the finance team, and whatever it takes for her to shine with all her expertise. He looked directly at her. Welcome, Miss Johnson. Here, talent isn't invisible. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Now the voice came out. I promise to honor this opportunity for myself and my children. And for us, he added, because the company we want needs what you have, courage and truth. Amanda projected the investor's email onto the screen. Congratulations, impeccable transparency. We're still together. Redwood and North Bridge. The room vibrated again. Michael made a final gesture. One final message: respect isn't a bonus, it's a minimum. Those who don't know how to give it don't belong here. He then turned to Grace, quietly. Will you close the meeting? Grace's eyes widened in surprise. Michael smiled. You saved it. You close it. She turned to the team, took a deep breath, and spoke simply the way children understand. Thank you. I started out cleaning floors. Today I understood that dignity is what makes everything truly shine. Let's work right, together. Applause. Again. Louder. In the marble hallway, the reflections revealed a different company. Outside, the sun set behind the financial district buildings, painting the glass facade gold. On Grace's phone, 2 messages. Mom, how was it? Maya. I got an 1820 on the test. Jordan. She smiled silently. On the main screen, the $1 million contract flashed, completed once again, as if the entire city was saying it worked. Congratulations, Grace, Michael said as he approached. It's all uphill from here. She clutched the blue notebook to her chest. Let's go. The next day, the Anderson & Co. auditorium on the 20th floor was packed. Huge screens displayed the Manhattan skyline in the background, and the company logo glowed in blue and white. Employees from every department, analysts, secretaries, cleaning staff, security guards, were gathered. It was an official announcement day, but no one knew exactly what was coming. Michael took the stage with his usual calm demeanor, but there was a different glint in his eyes. He looked out over the rows and began, In the last few days, we've all seen something happen at this company. Something that has changed the way we think, not just about contracts or finances, but about people. A buzz ran through the auditorium. Amanda adjusted her glasses. Lara smiled discreetly, and Max clapped to himself, unable to bear the weight. We've learned, Michael continued, that talent isn't measured by position nor by the title on the door. It can be found anywhere, even where we least pay attention. That's why, starting today, I'm announcing the creation of the Invisible Light program. The words lit up the air. This program, he explained, will offer scholarships, training, and support to all employees considered invisible in their daily work, cleaning, maintenance, and security. Each will have the opportunity to grow, learn, and showcase their talents. Spontaneous applause echoed. Grace's heart pounded. Michael raised his hand to calm the room and continued, And we don't stop there. Every employee will be able to nominate their children for scholarships. We want to ensure that no child in this corporate family is left without a dream due to a lack of opportunity. The auditorium erupted in applause. Some stood, others wept silently. Security guard Collins discreetly wiped his eyes in the corner. Michael then called, Grace Johnson, please come up. She walked slowly to the stage, her eyes brimming with tears, remembering the same marble hallway where, days ago, she'd cried alone, Now dozens of eyes followed her with respect and affection. Michael placed a firm hand on her shoulder. This woman is a living example of what we believe in going forward. She saved not only a contract, but the spirit of this company. So, I officially introduce our new Special Projects Financial Analyst, Grace Johnson. The entire crowd rose to its feet. Applause, whistles, and cheers echoed. Lara ran to the front to hug her. Amanda cried openly, and Max raised his arm as if it were a goal in a championship final. Grace tried to speak into the microphone. Her voice faltered at first, but soon steadied. I never thought I'd be here. I never thought anyone would really look at me. Pause. I've lost a lot in life, but today I gained something priceless. Respect. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you to each and every one of you. She took a deep breath, looked at her cleaning colleagues sitting in the front row, and added, I'll never lower my head again. The words echoed through the auditorium like a hymn. The employees chanted in unison, Never again. Grace smiled, finally feeling whole. In the pocket of her new blazer, she kept her blue notebook, crumpled and full of bills, a reminder of the walk there. Across town, in the Bronx, Maya and Jordan received the news over the phone. Full scholarship, the program coordinator said. You'll be attending one of the best schools in the city. Mom, Maya shouted on the other end of the line when Grace called. I knew you were amazing. I always said numbers were superpowers, Jordan joked, laughing. Grace laughed along, tears streaming down her face. She looked out the auditorium window at the golden Manhattan sky and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope without fear. Michael, watching in the background, commented quietly to Amanda, She didn't just change the company, she changed all of us. And Amanda replied, And it showed that the invisible only needs light to shine. That day, in the heart of Wall Street, a previously invisible woman became a symbol of transformation, not just for the company, but for all who believe that dignity can be born in the coldest hallways and grow to the brightest stages. End of history.